diciendo que tenía que hacer, pero ella lo hizo por...
Last week they were very vocal, they wanted to say something in the
Y además de
conversation.
Robert, wow, y yo,
Qué lindo, yes.
y esta vez fue más meaningful el prendió en las velas, porque yo antes pensaba que era una tradición. Entonces tenemos ahí algo que conversar, pero como yo lo tomo es que Dios me da la oportunidad como una reivindicación simbólica, obviamente, pero todo es simbólico. De prender la luz en Shabbat.
De mantener, of making sure that the light is on during Shabbat.
Tengo una pregunta. Cuando el sunset, ¿se prenden las velas o hay que esperar que todas las familias se juntan para prender las velas?
Oh yeah, you gotta have whole family there, but it should be before the sun comes up.
Yes, porque en esta enseñanza dice, esté tu esposo o no esté, tú igual prendes tu velas. Entonces, pero ayer yo estaba esperando a Robert que llegara porque él es el jefe de la casa, los sacerdotes, mi esposo,
And you
papá.
arrived a little bit later?
She's sorry.
Okay.
Aaron, I also
Prenderlo antes y esperar a hacer toda la ceremonia juntos o ¿cómo?
Usually Friday's getting home, it's the traffic.
I am a man.
Yeah.
So if you have to travel back and forth on the Friday from work to home, you're going to take at least 50 to 20 minutes
And it would be worse if you were on a train.
Oh, it would be worse, but I'm not, I'm driving.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's only during this period though.
Yes.
Before the sun starts to
Yeah.
come down a little bit later.
but I think that if you look at it, as I said to Mary, I'm going to talk to my manager and say if on the Fridays I can start, say 7:30 or 12, maybe 15 minutes, half an hour will make a difference.
Yeah.
If he's happy with that, fine.
Yeah.
Because then if I get accommodations that to suit, awesome.
You have to sit so back.
¿Tú le llamas a Pablo mi señor?
Sarah?
We should. We should. Yeah, pero tú, él te dice, ¿cómo te dice? Tú dices, en español sería mi señor, mi señora. Yo he escuchado en español que se dice mi señora, pero dicen mi señor. La enseñanza
Sometimes I call him my king.
Eso viene de lo que le decía a Abraham, mi señor.
But it's got more to do with acknowledging his authority
Exactly.
than the actual name itself.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But you can say whatever you want out of your mouth, but unless
It's followed
you
through by action.
recognize the authority,
Means meaning.
it's got to do with recognizing it. So,
Remember, that's more Christian harvest. The only problem
Cuando pongo el ojo, pongo la hora. Así decía el que manejaba el
what part are
Mercedes.
we up to?
We're part of Galatians 4.
No, we're not going Galatians.
What's this?
I'm done with Galatians. I think.
Yeah! Apologetics. You apologize
Thank
for...
you, Zion.
I apologize for apologetics. For apologizing. Okay. We're going to do something different today. Today you cannot do this step. We're going to do something. We're going to.
Multi-choice
Huh?
TV shows.
TV shows.
We're going to do this study basically on the fly. We're going to look at a topic and we're going to explore through the scriptures. So we're going to pick different topics and we're going to read through the scriptures. I did prepare a specific one. I was going to do the dietary law, dealing with what's it called, Leviticus 11, Acts chapter 15, the recommendations from the assembly to the believers. Thank you, Kayla.
Sorry.
I love background noise.
And going to Genesis chapter 9, the Noahide commandment there. So we're going to do that, but Abba said no. So what I believe he wants us to do is to test our ability to go through the scripture and find the resources that we need. Right? So sometimes you're going to come up with different questions where you're going to have to be able to move fast on your dial. Yeah? So use your technology, use your phone, your Google apps, all of that stuff. We're going to go looking at different tools, and you're going to learn to defend the things you believe through the scriptures. Right? So this time I'm not going to teach you, you're going to teach me. Okay? And I'm going to play the part of the opposing team. So, if anything. Yep. So I'll give you counter arguments and you can debate me, basically. Sort of like a debate, but not really a debate. We're not going to go hard on it. Ella, just stop, please. Okay.
I like that. Thank you.
Hopefully people can see that online. I don't know. It's a bit of glare though, I think. Each side. Okay. We're going to explore our faith, the reason why we believe the things we believe, and hopefully present a case for the faith we have. Okay? And you're all going to help me to do that. Alright, let's pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we come before your presence to study your word. I pray, Father, that you would teach us through your Spirit and guide us and lead us to all truth. Father, as we do this different thing today, may you keep our hearts in shalom. May you help us to find the resources and to learn to give an answer for the faith that is found in us according to your word. So Father, we commit ourselves into your hands. In the name of Yeshua, our Messiah and King. Amen. Alright. We're going to pick topics that we have been confronted with many times. And we're not going to do an exhaustive study through all the scriptures. Anybody needs an iPad? No? You all got your phones?
Aaron needs an iPad.
He's got his phone.
Got a Bible in front of you.
Yeah. And about 1%, I don't think I'm going to do much with this one.
Get your finger working. One is a swipe quick.
Alright. So usually the resources I have, there's a couple of ones that I always use.
Three-letter
wanna-
Bible.
It's called the Q Bible. Check that one out. And I also use Blue Letter Bible. Blue Letter Bible. There's other tools out there. Some, if you're willing to pay, they're a lot more powerful. But that's enough for me. For what I do anyway. then the basic Google everybody uses.
Oh, it's so weird. Can you use something like this?
So I don't know if you've seen it, but that's Blue Letter Bible. Yeah. So let's say I want to work out what a word is. I'll just click on the number. It gives me that. And then you have different options. And I usually go to the interlinear because that gives me an understanding of what, so that's the Hebrew there, and that gives me an understanding of what each word is. Servant, the bed, right? And if you click on the number that is there, the strong number, it'll take you into a more in detail breakup of that word and what it means and the uses, physical usage, where it's found in other verses. So you can have a sort of understanding from other verses. Doesn't always get it right, but for the most part it's pretty powerful. It gives you root words as well, the etymology of the word, where it comes from, so you can go there, for example, and it'll load another page with the root word, so that you know where the word is coming from. Yeah. And then you can go back and it gives you the thing. It's got different Bible versions, and so you can choose, the different books all listed there. You can choose what Bible you want. You can add different Bible. I mean, it's full of resources, but it's pretty good to use, pretty easy to use. So I definitely recommend you get that one if you don't have it yet.
That is Blue Bible. Blue Letter
Blue Letter Bible. Blue Letter Bible is a fairly powerful software, especially for what we use it. It's pretty good. Okay. All right. Without preambles. Well, the topics we usually get confronted with when we first come into our faith.
Why Shabbat? Why we keep in Shabbat?
The Shabbat.
When it is and how to keep it.
So, yep, all the things pertaining to the Shabbat.
When and how.
When, how,
Isn't that a Jew celebration?
huh?
Isn't that a Jew celebration? That's the other one that they come up with. Isn't that a Jew celebration?
When, why,
When, why,
where,
who.
how.
How was that?
Mm-hmm.
It's 5, isn't it?
Why?
Who,
Why?
Why?
What?
Why?
What?
And
Why,
Where?
What?
where. Okay. So, I think that pretty much applies to all the topics that we're going to explore. So, let's pick one. When? Let's begin, but when? Right?
It's an everyday Shabbat.
We're going to go from scriptures. So, is every day a Shabbat? When should we keep the Shabbat?
On the seventh day.
On the 7th day?
As per the fourth commandment.
7th day? What about Enoch's calendar? When is the 7th day? How can you prove it to me from scripture?
Enoch.
Well, Enoch's calendar works on a 29-day rotation, right? 29 days is a lunar month, right? Yeah? So, how many 7s in 29?
4. 4.1.
One left over.
So,
4.11.
7 4s is
28.
28.
28. So you get left,
One.
One
reminder.
okay, that one day,
Adds up to 30 months.
no, for the next month. So this is month 1, right? So let's do it.
So it overlaps with 1, doesn't it?
Right, so 7 days, 7 days, 7 days, 7 days, that's 28 days, that's month 1, right? And we've got 1 day left over, yeah? So the next 7 days is now 6 days. 6 plus 1 is 7, yeah? So now for the next month, being that it's 29 days, take away 1, so we got a 28-day period. So we get perfect 7s, right?
They're all February.
Perfect 7s. And so on and so forth. Anyway. The problem is because we add 1 day extra there, so that's a Shabbat, let's say, right? For argument's sake. Right, when we come here, that's Sunday. Sorry? No, it works still by 7. How does it work? Okay, it's 31 days. Anyway. So, the next day ends up being like a Wednesday or something like that.
The next Shabbat.
So you get some months actually go 29, it's 29.5. 29.5, so it's a 1.5 and a 5.5. Something like that. The specific is not important. The specific is not important, but it's sometimes you get it on a Wednesday, the Shabbat. Sometimes falls on the Shabbat. Sometimes falls on a Friday. So you get carried on 2 days, or whatever, and then, no, they don't put 5, sorry, they add 7 days. So you end up with a 8.5 week day. So that'll be Saturday, Sunday, that will be Monday. That will be a Monday. Which throws off the next 7 days. The next 7 days will all be Mondays. You understand that bit? You understand how we do that? So you add the 1.5 to the 7 days. The 1.5 left over to the 7 days.
So
That's
that's
how
what
it
you're
works.
saying is the Sabbath will keep changing days.
It keeps changing. It's never on the Sabbath day. It's never on the Saturday.
Which makes it very hard to get a day off.
So if you're working Monday to Friday, trying to keep the Saturday free, it doesn't matter anymore because now your Sabbath can fall on Monday, the next week can fall on a Wednesday, and so on and so forth.
But that's according to Enoch.
That's according to the lunar month calendar, right? Which is said to come from the book of Enoch.
Who uses that at the moment though?
A lot of people, it's called the Essene calendar, right? So it was actually being used by the Essenes according to people's interpretation anyway.
That's where we get the issue.
Yeah.
Interpretation.
So there's the Essenes calendar. The Enoch calendar. They're pretty much the same. There's a few differences, but pretty much the same. The lunar month calendars, or lunar based 29.5 day calendars. There's also the what's the before the Gregorian? There was another one. So the Gregorian, which we use today.
The one that was based on 10 months.
Yeah, what's that one? Julian
calendar.
The Julian calendar. And The Jews go by the Hillel calendar, and we call our one the biblical calendar.
I'm sure they all call it the biblical.
We call it the biblical
Yeah.
calendar. And on this biblical calendar there's Aviv 1, Aviv 2, depending on your interpretation of the biblical calendar. So, when is a pretty important question, I think, to answer. How can we prove that the Shabbat is on Saturday? From scriptures.
Well, if you actually look at Genesis 2:2
Genesis 2:2? Okay, let's go there.
and 3.
Should I read?
Where is he?
Diana, fine.
Where is she? Yep. Can we read it?
And on the seventh day Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim in creating had made.
Okay. How does that prove to us that the calendar is on Saturday?
Because the first day of the week is Sunday, isn't it?
Do we then
Not
work,
according to the Enoch calendar.
do we then work on the new moon as the beginning of the month? And then
I'm
go
not
on
answering
Sunday?
questions. I'm asking you the questions. You gotta give me the answers. See, this is the point. We're gonna do this in reverse, right? You guys need to give me the answers. What do you think?
How viable is the calendar? What's the proof behind the calendar Enoch developed?
Well, we got Enoch and the Essenes. They're basically similar, very similar. And they're both found from the Qumran documents. And they both have a description of the cycles of the moon and of the sun. So some people swear by these calendars, so they say that that's the original calendar. So how do we argue that that's possibly not the truth?
Can I answer?
Yeah, you can answer.
Well, the moon, the sun and the moon were created on the,
6th day.
what day was it created? No, the fourth day
Mhm.
they were created. So
Yep.
when the countdown began, the moon wasn't even created yet.
Right? So
So
what do
he
you
was
say to
already
that?
4 days in.
Yeah.
But that means that the earth was created before the sun and moon,
Mhm.
It was.
so everything revolves around the earth.
The sun. The sun. The sun's
Different
stagnant
debate.
and the earth goes around. Not the other way around.
Different
We'll get
debate.
back to that one. Right, so, okay, so we're saying when the sun and the moon were created, it was the fourth day. So days began before the sun and the moon were created. So the 29.5 day cycle really shouldn't be observed because
4 days off.
because we're 4 days off. Okay, so we can fix that. 29.5 plus 4,
Times
Okay.
4.
what, 33.5 days. We call it the Chavela to Isabel calendar.
No, I don't take credit for that one. It's wrong.
No? I thought we had something.
When he made the moon, was the first moon a full moon or is it a new moon?
I would say it's a new moon because it was new.
It's a new.
Baby.
So a new moon is after a full moon. It's a day
15 days away from each other.
Yeah.
Almost 15 days from each other.
He also tells us that he called the first day, the first day began in the evening, and that was when the countdown began.
Okay, so we say the days began in the evening.
Well, that's
Yeah.
still observed
And then
now anyway.
6 days from that was the Sabbath, was when he rested. Shabbat.
6 days from the fourth day.
No, from the day that the first day began, the first of creation.
What happened in the first day?
Light.
Is light.
Let light come to be, and light came to be, and Elohim saw that he was good, and Elohim separated the light from the darkness, and Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and it came to be evening, and it came to be morning, one day.
Can you push it in? I think it's not.
The countdown began on the first day of
So the
creation.
first day we see light. Could that be the beginning of the formation of the sun? But it was completed on the fourth day, maybe? Still just
Could be, yep.
Could be. First day there was light. Okay. That's still that's an answer for us. The question of the 29.5 day moon-based calendar.
It's got nothing to do with the moon.
Very good. What about the sun?
No.
What's the sun cycles?
Well, I'd say that's because we actually sunset to sunset.
Okay, what's the sun cycle?
365 days.
365?
25.
Are we sure? Now, how many days in a month in a solar
3,
month?
How many days in a solar month?
Yeah, they change.
well, every 4 years you've got a leap year, don't you?
Yeah. So, according to the Julian calendar, there was 360 days.
That's what the Jews have down.
Right? According to the Gregorian calendar, there's 365 days in a bit. 0.2 something 5. Whatever.
So it works out to 28.07 days per moon for 13 moons in one
Yeah,
solar.
that's if we got 13 months. If we got, it goes to 29 again a little bit if you take away a month. Yeah. So depending on which cycle of the moon changes every 40 years or something. So Hillel's is basically based on a moon calendar 2, incorporating the Gregorian into it. So what's the moon calendar? 360 something as well. Anyway, so it's not the moon we said. It's got nothing to do with the moon. It's got to do with the sun then. It's alright?
Yep, sunset to sunset.
The sun was spread on the fourth day as well.
The Julian calendar has 365 days.
Julian?
Yes.
So the moon calendar's got 360.
Julian.
But they're divided in different months or something? 10 months or something? November, December, the 10th month, the 9th month. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. For this, it's just, the point that we're trying to make is this is a mess, right? How do we
With all
know?
the amount of calendars have got, of course it's a
I
mess.
think it's more simplified than that because he counted 7 days
Very.
I said
Alright.
that, and I even gave Bible verses.
You counted 7 days. Okay. So it's not based on the moon, and it's not based on the sun.
Yeah.
It's based
Why do
on
we do sunset to sunset?
days. What Bible verse can we use for that? Come on, Bereans.
Can I just read?
Huh? No?
Read it again.
I'm not sure.
You probably had Julian calendar or Gregorian calendar in mind.
Which do we read?
I read, and Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, one day. And then every day has 7 days, 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day.
How can we prove that it's based on a 7-day cycle?
Proof? Because that's what it says.
Where?
In the Bible, it's called.
Where?
Genesis
Bible
2.2 and 3. Right there.
Yeah, Genesis 32.
Right there.
What does it say?
Which one?
And on this seventh day Elohim completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made.
He rested on the 7th day.
And Elohim blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all his work which Elohim is creating and made.
Yeah, so Genesis 2:3 tells us that it was done in 7 days.
Yep.
So our cycles is 7 days. Who cares about the moon and the sun? Aaron, Leviticus what?
23.
What?
2, 3.
3?
6 days shall work be done, but on the 7th day is a Shabbat of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work. It is the Shabbat to Yehovah in all your dwelling places.
And unlike the other
Exodus
feasts,
20:11.
Can you find me the verses?
11.
11? Yeah, can you read it?
For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them, but on the 7th day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy.
Exodus 23:12.
23:12.
In 6 days you shall do your work, but on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your donkey may have rest, and the son of your servant woman and the alien may be refreshed.
What about the 4th commandment itself? Deuteronomy 5. Huh? Yeah, Exodus 20.
Deuteronomy
28 says, remember the Shabbat day to Kadosh it, to keep it holy. 6 days your labour, you shall do all your work, but on the 7th day in Shabbat of your Elohim, of your Yehovah your Elohim, you do not do any work for you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates.
6 days you work, on the 7th, again, 7-day pattern. Deuteronomy 5 is another one.
12 to
14.
12 to 14.
Bless you.
A revisiting of the 12 of the 10 commandments.
15.
15 as well.
Yeah, 12 to 15.
Okay. Can we read it?
Observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day no one in your household may do any work. This includes your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your oxen and donkeys and other living stock, and any foreigners living among you. All your male and female servants must rest as you do. Remember that you were once slaves in Egypt, but the Lord your God brought you out of the strong hand and powerful arm. That is why the Lord your God has commanded you to rest on the Sabbath day.
Okay. So we established that when is basically
It's interesting because it says,
The 7th
the
day.
Lord your God commanded you to rest on the Sabbath day. And it says the Lord commanded you to perform the Sabbath day. Wow.
prior to
strong.
7th. to
More
7th
than
day.
actually 2.
So we got a 7-day cycle, right? That's when?
Yeah.
On the 7th day
On
of
the
the
7th
7th-day cycle. 7 days. Seven-day cycle. That's how we determine when Shabbat is. Gonna have to do with calendars, months. Right? There's a count for months. There's a count for days. There's a count for years. Right? But each is based on each other, not the other way around. So every 7th day is a Shabbat. Now, did the count begin on a Wednesday, according to the Gregorian calendar? Or did it start on a Sunday? Because then the Sabbath day will fall on a Sunday every week, and the Christians have it right. Who's to say when the first day began for that count?
We look at what Judah is doing.
Alright, when did they begin the Jewish calendar? What year? Does anyone know?
No idea.
But up until the time that Paul spoke and he went and started speaking about changing to the Sunday, that's what they were doing, all the actual Saturday cycles.
Yeah.
So it's between that time that Paul talks about the Christianity, and then they all take off about this new Sunday worshipping.
Okay, can we prove continuity? Can we prove that wasn't broken?
But we saw Yeshua doing it, so from then they still had it right.
Well, I think that the Gregorian calendar, being the Romans that actually got more involved into the Catholic Church, it would prove that up until now, Judah, as one of the 12 tribes, have continuously done the 7-day cycle.
Yep. But how can we prove that things weren't changed around, right? Because the Catholic Church did a lot of things. They messed up with the dates, with calendars. They, added things, taken away things. Like they changed the Shabbat, right? They took that away, and they made it Sunday.
And language?
Huh?
Language, is that a good example? Because I know in Maltese, as it is in Hebrew,
Yep.
Sunday's the first day. It's known as, Monday's known as the second day. It's given a number,
Yeah.
not a name.
So in the Hebrew as well, we use numbers, not.
Yeah, not
Gematria.
Yeah. So we use numbers for the days, not Moon Day and Thor's Day and
right.
Freya's Day.
A lot of most languages, Saturday does say Sabbath in it.
It's
Yeah.
it.
Sabbath. Sabbath.
I mean, that's got to count for something.
Yep. So we can argue from that point of view in most languages.
Italian it's Sabato.
Most languages is called a Sabbath. Sabbath. So that's one argument that we can point out. The second one is what Chava was saying before. Yeshua kept it, didn't change it. Right? So Yeshua, when he was on the earth 2,000 years ago, he was doing it, supposedly on the right day, right? He was Messiah. Yeah? And then the apostles, Paul, everybody was doing it on the Sabbath day, right? And then they called the next day, the first day, the Sunday, right? First day was called the Sunday. That's by the Catholic Church, when they changed the Shabbat. Now the Catholic Church made a big point of changing the Shabbat, so we know that they changed the correct day that Yeshua was keeping
Saturday to the Sunday.
and the disciples were keeping, the correct day that our Messianic brothers were keeping before, what's his name? Okay?
Yeah, Constantine.
Constantine.
Constantine. Before Constantine came, we know that they were keeping the Sabbath on the right day because it was passed on from Messiah to the disciples, right? All the way down until this guy came through.
So if the Catholics are keeping their Sunday, we know the day before
Yeah.
is the correct day.
Right? So we know that there is continuity because of the Catholic mess-up. Right? So in a way they did us a favor.
You know how they justified it? Because Yeshua died and on the Friday and rose on Sunday the third day. They said that is the day that's supposed to be kept holy. So therefore they've got this justification.
Yeah. But if you go by the Gregorian calendar, he actually rose on the Saturday night.
In order to
You know that it
fulfill
was a
scripture.
Saturday night.
Because of the time that we're talking about.
Because the first day or the first fruit begins on the evening, right? Remember? Our Hebrew days begin in the evening. So when did he rise? At the new fruit day.
Yeah.
Or the first fruit day. Which begins in the evening on Saturday.
And this was around the time they were doing Shabbat, Pentecost, right?
Yeah. Not Pentecost. Bikurim.
So it's just after
First fruit.
after Pesach, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Bikurim.
The day that we brought the tithes in.
The first day after the Shabbat. So we know that on the crossing over from the Saturday to the Sunday, which is, on the crossing over of the 6th day to the 7th day, to the Shabbat, 6th day to the Shabbat, on the crossing over, which is in the evening, that's when he rose. That's still Saturday. We got 4 hours till midnight, from 8 o'clock till midnight. So 4 hours between Saturday finishing and midnight. First fruit started 4 hours before the Saturday, according to the Gregorian calendar. And so even in that, they got it wrong. But who cares? They didn't do that for that reason. So, awesome. So now you know how to defend the when. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the Catholics do it on Sunday.
Doesn't matter which calendar we follow?
Yes.
Okay, good. Why?
Perhaps can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Other than the obvious, is there another take on why would there be such a mixture of calendars? Because if we go by history, you know, every race basically comes up with one of them, like the Mayans, they come up with their own calendar.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't put that on it.
Right?
Yeah.
They've done the solar calendar, they've done this, they've done that. So the fact is that other than confusing people with different kind of calendar and how they work, the moon and the sun, is that a throw into the spanner type of thing to be able to undermine the importance of Shabbat from the God perspective?
So they're confusing everything.
Yeah.
Right? You got Chinese calendar, you got, Asians have, I think every nation has a different calendar too. So, there's,
the pig and the dog and the rat and...
yeah. The point being is the Gregorian calendar was created to fit Saturnalia.
Yeah.
Was
Christmas.
centered around Saturnalia.
Christmas.
Gregorian calendar is centered around Saturnalia. Julian calendar began that, but then the Gregorian sort of added a couple of new things into it to add more celebrations of the Saturnalia. And then Hillel's calendar was based on the Hebrew biblical calendar, but he was contracted or paid by the Catholic Church to create a calendar for the Jews, right, that didn't interfere with the pagan feasts. Right? So where the Jewish feasts or the Jewish celebrations are called interfere with the Catholic Christian calendar. Hillel actually added a day or two to take it away from, or a week or whatever he needed to do to move it away from the actual biblical calendar. So is it 100% correct? No, it's not. Definitely not correct. It's pretty accurate in some cases.
The Shabbat will be always accurate though, because it's still a 7-day count.
The Julian one, the
Hillel?
Gregorian one,
No, Hillel.
Hillel's calendar. Well, Hillel piggybacks off the Gregorian, so yeah, it's the same. You can count 7 days. That's not to do with the calendar. That's to do with how many days in a week. So the structure of the week was preserved, right? 7 days. 7 days to a week. That was preserved.
From our perspective, being Messianic Hebrews, which is the calendar that we should be observing?
Well, I think Hillel gives you a beginning.
Yes.
I don't think Enoch or the Essene calendar has any merit, to be honest. That's why they were in the place of refuse. They were actually Qumran, it was actually a dump. Hillel is probably the beginning, like when you first start, when you get your handle on the calendar, you would go to Hillel first. But moving on from there, you will need to start understanding your biblical calendar, which begins when?
First of Nisan,
First of Nisan. Yep. According to what?
the Bible.
Where is Nisan in the Bible?
Leviticus 22.
It's the harvest of the...
No. That's Aviv.
It's gonna turn off. First of Nisan. What was that? Aviv?
Yeah, Aviv determines the actual time when we start doing all our celebrations.
Okay. Is it Nisan or is it Aviv?
No, before Mary was asking which one was it's Nisan, but Aviv is the half that determines the barley is ready,
Yeah.
so we start doing all the celebrations.
Where do we get Nisan from?
7 months.
I would think Aviv is the...
What's 7 in Hebrew? What? Shiva. So where do we get Nisan from?
The car.
Good
From the
try.
car? No.
We all should have Nisans then.
From Babylon?
No, that's Tammuz. That's the 10th one.
From Babylon.
Yes.
It's a Babylonian name.
Same with Tammuz.
Yep. Month of Tammuz.
10th
All those names are Babylonian names. After the captivity of Babylon, they came back to the Babylonian calendar, which they sort of adapted it to their own. But in the Bible, it's called the Aviv, the month of Aviv. Why is it called the month of Aviv?
Because the harvest.
This is the determines the harvest. From there, all the it's a pivoting month that actually determines when the barley is ready for all the festivities to take place.
Yeah, it's a harvest month.
Yep.
What does Aviv mean?
Ready.
Ready or ripe? So we know that the biblical month begins on the month of ready, or the month of ripe, right, for the first harvest. And we know that from what Bible verse?
This shall be the first day of the year. I don't know where that is.
Yeah. You know it?
I am.
Finish it? You gotta get familiar with these Bible verses because they're important when you are presenting for your apologetics.
Exodus 12:2.
Exactly.
And then Exodus.
Exodus 12:2. Okay. So now Hillel is out, and we go by the biblical calendars. Why do we still have to?
So the Hillel calendar is the one that has Rosh Hashanah, no?
Rosh Hashanah. So they change Feast of Trumpets for the head of the year on the 7th month, on the wrong month. So the Hillel calendar begins on the 7th month, not on the first one, like Aviv.
If that's the case, then the date of Yeshua's birth also is determined by that, isn't it? Because it's the 7th month in that reading on the calendar.
No, that's controversial.
Okay.
We'll get into that one sometime.
That's a different Pandora's box.
Is
Yeah.
it? Is
But
it,
it's calculated by the 12th or 13th month.
Okay.
So, yeah. So how come we have now two biblical Aviv calendars?
Because it depends on what they consider Aviv.
What's ready, what's not?
What whoever's measuring to what they
Or is it
consider.
one little area, or is it a vast area
Yeah.
that they do the taking? So the first and the second will come into that.
It's actually like maybe 4 different ones. If you really want to dig right into it, there's about 4 different biblical Aviv calendar, considering all this understanding that we are talking about. So, who's right? Who's wrong?
We are.
We're always right, right?
Are we?
Who determines when the first day of the month is?
Isn't that the priest, high priest?
Nope.
The watchman.
Nope.
No, what you want?
Can you please repeat the question?
Who determines when Aviv begins?
Who determines? Do the
So
priests
now
have
we're
to go
going
out?
to go on who?
Do the priests have to go out and see?
No? It's got nothing to do with the priests.
Who determines Aviv?
The plan.
Nehemiah Gordon?
Who? Not what? Who?
Brother Nehemiah, that's it.
The farmers.
The farming people.
That's what I said, Sam. Copy.
The farmer
Sanhedrin.
Krugers?
Who is the Sanhedrin?
The 70 elders.
70 or 72 elders.
72? I was thinking only 70.
There's a controversy whether it was 70 or 72. Right? But we're not going to get into that one. 70 elders, right? Of the Jews, the Sanhedrin is still pretty much alive and kicking in Israel. So we should wait for the Jews to tell us when the Aviv begins. Is that right?
We should.
We
But
should.
unless they follow the Hillel and they've got a set.
They do follow the Hillel. So the Sanhedrin nowadays is made up of Jews and they follow Hillel.
First.
Hillel's calendar.
It's a false Sanhedrin. It's not all the tribes.
Very good.
Can you please repeat? Who said that?
It's a false Sanhedrin. It hasn't got all the tribes.
Yeah, it's a false Sanhedrin, it doesn't have all the tribes. Well, even if it didn't have all the tribes, the fact that Judah is in the land should mean that they are legitimate in the land, even if the other brothers are not there, right? Because they got the capital, they got Jerusalem. So, authoritatively speaking, they should still have authority. So what's going on? What else can we say about Sanhedrin? Why don't we follow the commandments of the Sanhedrin? Why don't we go by Judaism according to their, because they're supposed to regulate, right? They're the 70 elders who are supposed to regulate all things spiritual in regards to Israel as a nation.
So we don't have a temple.
Yeah, no, the Sanhedrin worked outside the temple.
Okay.
Sanhedrin always worked outside the temple. They were the elders of tribes, not necessarily priesthood or Torah teachers for that matter, but they mainly like governors.
Nowadays
Like
adds to the Torah.
Huh?
Does the Sanhedrin nowadays adds to the Torah?
They add to the Torah. Yep. There's something else that is hidden in history. What happened during the time of Messiah?
They are the ones that actually got into Pontius Pilate to get him killed.
Who were the priesthood? Who was the original priesthood during the time of Messiah? Who was the high priest?
Caiaphas.
Wasn't it?
The tree or the ones that paid their way?
Tell me either one.
Caiaphas.
Caiaphas. Caiaphas.
Nicodemus was in amongst the
Yep. So Caiaphas was the
high priest.
prescribed high priest in the temple of Herod during Messiah's time. But who was the believed to be the righteous high priest?
John the Baptist.
Brother Yochanan. So what had happened? Why did Caiaphas gain power?
Because of the Romans.
So there was a bit of this going on underneath.
Yeah, it's actually documented that he paid his way
That's right.
into the office.
Yep.
Right? He paid himself into the office. Right? So all the offices during the time of Messiah, right, were paid. You could pay the office, then you could be part of it. You could buy the rights from the Romans. You buy yourself into the priesthood, you buy yourself into the Sanhedrin.
How legitimate would that make them?
Right? So if you could buy yourself into the Sanhedrin and buy yourself into the priesthood, doesn't that annul the power of the Sanhedrin and the power of the priesthood?
You would think so.
It does. They're no longer valid because they're forgeries.
They haven't
they're
been
not,
rightly chosen.
they're not righteous in any way. So whoever's left on the Sanhedrin now, how are they chosen?
Amongst
Randomly.
themselves.
By the sages, by the rabbis, they put in whoever they want. Are they from the 12 tribes? Who cares? The Jews. That's the only thing they look at. Right? So we don't have a governmental system at the moment, not even in Israel, that can determine for us when the beginning of months is. That presents a problem for us because we're out in the nations trying to keep the Torah, but there is no guide, no governmental guide that will take responsibility and say, you know, this is the day we're going to begin the Aviv. Apart from that, they follow a wrong calendar. They follow a calendar that is based on Catholicism. Or that was made to fit Catholicism. So the Aviv then comes up to each of us to start looking into it, right? And trying to work out, depending on when the barley is ready in Israel. So you got groups all over Facebook and that are going from farm to farm, looking at the Aviv and determining whether the Aviv is ready or not. Some that ascribe to Judaism will need to find only three heads fully golden, ready for picking in a whole field. And that for them is enough to determine it's Aviv.
It doesn't work though.
My question with that is, how are you going to present an offering to Yehovah
There were three.
with three, right? When you're supposed to bring an omer, and Omer. Right? How much was an Omer?
2.2.
2.2 liters of dry measure.
Yep.
About
1/10 of it.
Ephah.
1/1 ephah.
yeah.
Yep.
About 3 and a bit kilos anyway. Give or take anyway. So how are you gonna bundle all that from 3 heads of golden, barley? So that's one way anyway. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is right. I'm just pointing out that question. For me, it doesn't make sense. I like to wait till all the fields are sort of maturing. You will get differences between the south and the north of Israel, but you sort of can gauge it when when it's sort of ready across the board, because that's the other thing. The people in the north might have it ready, when the people in the south, because it's colder, it's not going to have it ready. So when it comes time to present the offering, guess what? The people in the north will present the offering. People in the south will come with green barley because they don't have ready barley. So then it goes into the 13th month, which sort of complicates a little bit more if you're not accustomed to that. So that's where the two calendars come. Are they wrong? Are they right? Some people are off by like 3 months, and they wait till absolutely everything is ripe and peaked, and I think that's probably overkill. But anyway, so they're almost going to 14th month. So some people are a week ahead, some people are a week behind. It's another.
Yeah, because what's a new moon?
What's a new moon? Right, so they combine the biblical calendar with the new moon.
As if it wasn't complicated enough.
Yeah, what's a new moon though? Can you see a new moon? Or is it the slither of a moon?
Yeah,
What happens
so
if there's clouds?
new moon, all black, you can't see it.
You need your superpower
Right,
binoculars.
that's what is it?
And which
Conjunction?
moon? Where is it supposed to be?
You can't see it, then that's a new moon. That's conjunction, right?
If they can't see the new moon in Israel, is there a new moon? You
Well-
couldn't, maybe it's cloudy for
If it's
3
cloudy,
weeks.
they go for another 2-3 days until it's not cloudy anymore and they can see it. So there's conjunction,
Then
then
you're 3
there's
days off. You've
the
missed the new
slither.
moon.
And
Well,
that's
most
only
of it
applicable
is
Israel,
dark,
but
but
elsewhere,
not
does it
the
apply
slither.
there? Oh, do we have to go all the time, go back to Israel?
So it can get complicated, right?
To say the least.
Yeah. Does that affected the slither people? So it can get complicated when it comes to that, right? There's also the 2 witnesses. Have you heard of that one? So the Sanhedrin would, in ancient times, send 2 witnesses to the heights to see when the new moon was, to the mountains, and they would come back and give the report that they had seen, or they had seen the new moon or the slither. And then that's when they will declare the Aviv month. So some people wait for witnesses to go up the mountains. And again, we can go, adding and taking days here and there. Doesn't really matter. It matters in the sense of keeping the unity of the body, I think. Are we going to get it 100%? I don't think so. Not till Messiah comes and reinstates a governmental system that can take care of that, right? Because if it's up to each individual, well, that's why we got like 20 biblical calendars. I like to keep it simple. If there's enough barley, then we're going to the new month, the Aviv. I like the conjunction. When I don't see the moon anymore, that's it. And I go through the app, so I don't have to send anybody up the mountain. Right? I mean, let's use what we got. Keep it simple. And if other people disagree, that's all right. We're okay to disagree. Yeah? But that's how we do it anyway. That's how I do it. That's how it is.
You know how before you said that it doesn't really matter. Going back in some, I wouldn't say all of them, but in some of the videos which we've seen from Sick Person,
Yeah.
he's actually stated there's a lot of Facebook messages around this kind of topics, and he says, I don't want to be disrespectful, but our brethren seems to be hanged up
Yeah.
on things of this nature to the point of them abusing online. And he says, look,
I want to call them brethren to begin with.
we wouldn't even, I think he has to be kind enough to be able to say that, but probably if he had a different way, he wouldn't address them as such. But he says, the amount of time that he spends trying to talk to these people and teach them that it's got nothing to do with that is amazing.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of effort putting in to try and teach the right way. People are willing to listen.
Yeah. So we looked at the calendar basically so far, and we established that the Shabbat was a 7-day cycle. Does it really matter when the Aviv begins for us in terms of keeping the Shabbats?
No, not for the Shabbat.
No. No.
But it
Doesn't
determines
matter.
the halves, all and all the feast from there on.
Yeah, it determines the feast days. So the months determine the feasts. They don't determine the Shabbat. Okay? So that's our position in that. We take it from Exodus 12, Leviticus 23, and so on and so forth. What was the month of Aviv? Exodus 12, was it?
Exodus 12.
Yeah.
12 actually.
Now, who's to keep the Sabbath day? That's a different.
All of Israel.
Together. All of Israel.
The ones who have a covenant with him.
Who's Israel?
10 tribes.
Everyone has accepted Yeshua as the Messiah, and
Oh.
we've been
Okay, Bible verses.
Grafted in.
grafted in this.
Can we prove that? Because people say we're not concerned about that. That's for the Jews. There's Jews. What are you gonna against Jews?
I don't think anybody's got anything against Jews because they're our brothers, but they are
No.
one of the houses of the 12
Jews.
Jews. But if you've got against the Jews.
Exodus 31:16.
Okay. So
And the children of Israel shall guard the Sabbath to perform the Sabbath throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant.
Exodus 31.
Yep.
13.
16.
16.
Yep.
And the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath day.
Yep.
As an everlasting covenant. Yep. So that's for them, Israel.
21, 13. 13 also. And you speak to the children of Israel, saying, My Sabbath you are to guard by all means, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, to know that I, Jehovah, am setting you apart.
13 and 16? Yep. That's still Israel. So how do I know it's for me?
What was the first person?
When he gave the 10 Commandments, and all of Israel was present at Mount Sinai, that was all Israel at the time, it wasn't Judah.
All of Israel? Okay. Well, okay. So, yeah. I'll just put something here. So, what we're talking about there is that Israel is composed of 12 tribes, right?
Yep.
12 tribes. Not just Jews, because Jews is only, what, 3 tribes?
Yeah.
3 tribes.
I thought it was 2.
2 plus...
2.5.
The
2.5.
Levites.
2
Not
plus
the
the
Levites.
Levites. So this really is 13 tribes. Anyway. 13 tribes. 12 tribes. Because we've got a division.
They took 2 and they kept. They took out 2 and they put in 2 and they frame them and up.
So we'll keep it simple. It says 2. 2 tribes.
Did you call me something?
Okay, so that's what we're talking about there. Well, the Jews believe that there's been a conglomeration of all tribes together already, but they're all under the banner of being Jews.
Yeah, since when?
Because there were, of the 12 tribes that stayed in the land, that returned after the exiles. So all 12 tribes are contained within what's now known as the Jews.
But if that would have happened, then prophecy would have been fulfilled and Yeshua would have come.
Well, in their mind, some people believe the Messiah already came, who was actually a guy called Lubavitch.
CH?
Something like that. Or Lubavitch. I can't remember.
Okay. I get he's Russian descent, Lubavitch.
Yeah, it's from